We will start the bulletin from India, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi has claimed victory in the 17th general elections. Opposition Congress party leader has conceded defeat in the polls. The ruling Bharatiya Janata Party is leading on 330 seats, while Congress is far behind the ruling coalition on 90 seats. Voting took place in 7 phases at more than 1 million polling stations across 36 states and union territories. The United Nations Organization for Palestinian Refugees has rejected a U.S. call to dismantle the agency. The UNRWA said it cannot be blamed for stalled peace efforts. Earlier, the U.S. said the agency had failed Palestinians and should be disbanded. U.S. advisor Jason Greenblatt said countries hosting Palestinians should take over responsibility from the UN. Last year, President Donald Trump cut all funding to the Palestinian Refugee Agency. The UN agency says it is worried about the plight and status of Palestinian refugees within the US. Britain and the Netherlands are headed to the polls for the first of the 4-day European Union elections. 73 members will be elected in the 9 constituencies of England. Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland are each voting for 1 EU constituency. Based on its population, each region of Britain will get a different number of representatives. They range from 3 MEPs in the Northeast and Northern Ireland to 10 MEPs in the Southeast. The unexpected election is a result of the deadlock over the 3 times defeated Brexit deal. The vote is expected to show growing frustration on both sides of the Brexit divide. Opinion polls show strongly pro-Brexit and pro-EU parties are the leading contenders. Meanwhile, in the Netherlands, nationalist Thierry Baudet's Forum for Democracy is set to gain big. The results will not be announced until all EU nations have voted. 5 more civilians have been killed in latest airstrikes launched by government forces on rebel-held areas in northwestern Syria. War monitors said over 100 combatants have been killed in fighting around the town of Kafr Nabuda since Tuesday. They said the militants have retaken most of the town captured by government forces on May the 8th. Earlier, Russia said the United States has launched a campaign to blame it for Idlib hospital strikes. The Kremlin accused the U.S. of trying to stonewall the clampdown on international terrorists in Syria. The statement comes after the U.S. accused the Russian and Syrian forces for deliberately hitting hospitals in Idlib. Meanwhile, the U.S. has called for a ceasefire in the country. It accused the Assad regime of using chemical weapons, including an alleged chlorine attack in the fighting. Washington has warned of a quick response if the charges are proven. Pakistan has conducted a successful training launch of the Shaheen-2, a surface-to-surface ballistic missile. The missile is capable of carrying both conventional and nuclear warheads up to a range of 1,500 kilometers. The Army spokesman Major General Asif Ghafoor has said the missile meets Pakistan's strategic needs towards stability. China has told the U.S. to change its behavior if it wants to continue negotiations to end the damaging tariff war. The Commerce Ministry says the U.S. has increased the chances of a global economic recession with its escalation in tensions. In a press briefing, ministry spokesman Gao Feng said trade talks should be based on mutual respect. He said China has told the U.S. of its grievances over sanctions on Huawei. Feng said Beijing will take every step to safeguard the Chinese firm's interests. Minister Andrea Leadsom, a long-term Brexit advocate, has resigned from Prime Minister Theresa May's cabinet. In a letter to media, May expressed her disappointment at the resignation but promised to carry on. After her Brexit gambit backfired, the pressure on Prime Minister May is mounting amidst calls for her to quit. Senior MPs of her own party have called for her to abandon the vote on her plan and just resign. Former and current cabinet ministers are already jostling for position in the race to replace her. The ex-leader of the House of Commons, Leadsom, says she could no longer support May. Leadsom resigned to avoid announcing the new withdrawal agreement bill in Parliament.
Because, I have been supporting Brexit totally for the last 3 years, and I just couldn't, as leader of the Commons with responsibility for the legislation, stand up at business questions tomorrow and announce a bill that I just think has elements I cannot support that aren't Brexit.
A U.S. court has rejected President Donald Trump's request to hide his financial details to the Congress. The U.S. president has pleaded the court to block Deutsche Bank from providing his monetary records to the House. In the decision, the judge said Congress has the legal authority to demand the records. This has cleared the way for the banks to comply with subpoenas issued by 2 House committees last month. The committees have agreed not to enforce the subpoenas for 7 days. In Albany, New York, lawmakers approved a bill allowing Congress to obtain Trump's state tax returns.
What we're doing here is making sure that all public officials, all government officials, are treated the same way in the eyes of the law, and that you don't have to be the favorite of the president to avoid having scrutiny.
At least 3 people have been killed as a violent tornado sweeps across the state of Missouri. An emergency alert and flash flood warning was issued for the state capital, Jefferson City. People in Missouri, Oklahoma, and Kansas were advised to take shelter as heavy rain, hail, and lightning struck. Some 3,500 people were left without electricity following several outages caused by the severe weather. Emergency officials carried out door-to-door searches amid reports of trapped residents. Government officials said risk of flooding in Oklahoma is still high.
It's not just the Tulsa area, but even downriver. All the communities need to stay tuned, take this very, very seriously as they listen to what the emergency management folks are saying as far as the flooding concerns.
Washington remains embroiled in a power struggle over the Democrats' ability to investigate President Donald Trump. On Tuesday, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi accused President Trump of being involved in a cover-up. Details in this report.
Democrats in the U.S. Congress continue to debate the possibility of impeaching President Donald Trump. Speaking to reporters on Capitol Hill, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said Trump was engaged in a cover-up.
We do believe that it's important to follow the facts. We believe that no one is above the law, including the President of the United States, and we believe that the President of the United States is engaged in a cover-up, and that was the nature.
U.S. President Donald Trump has termed House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's allegations a witch hunt.
We have given on a witch hunt, on a hoax. The whole thing with Russia was a hoax as it relates to the Trump administration and myself. It was a total, horrible thing that happened to our country.
U.S. President Donald Trump declared that he wouldn't work with the Democrats on infrastructure because of their phony investigations.
I want to do infrastructure. I want to do it more than you want to do it. I'd be really good at that. That's what I do. But you know what? You can't do it under these circumstances. So get these phony investigations over with.
He also refused to allow current and former advisors to testify before the Congress. These actions have aggravated his ongoing confrontation with the lawmakers.
In Somalia, at least 7 people have been killed in a car bomb attack near a security checkpost in Mogadishu. Former Foreign Minister Hussein Elaib Fahie is among those killed in the blast. A security official said 11 other people were wounded in the attack. The Al-Shabaab militant group has claimed responsibility for the explosion. In Indonesia, a police official has alleged that the group responsible for riots in Jakarta has links to ISIS. At least 7 people have died and more than 200 have been injured after a rally against official election results turned violent. Details here.
Hundreds of people took to the streets after the results confirmed incumbent President Joko Widodo's victory in last month's polls. They set vehicles ablaze and wreaked property in Tanah Abang district of central Jakarta. Police fired tear gas and water cannons to disperse the protesters. Police spokesman Muhammad Iqbal said the rioting was planned rather than a spontaneous outburst.
They intended to carry out jihad during protests on the 21st and 22nd. We have found strong evidence that this Garis group has been declared as ISIS supporters in Indonesia.
Meanwhile, the government has blocked access to social media in parts of Jakarta. The protest came after presidential candidate Prabowo Subianto refused to accept the results of the general elections.
Sudan's military has said that it wants to transfer power to a democratically elected government as soon as possible. In a recent interview, senior official of military council said army does not want to prolong tumultuous situation in the country. He said military is ready to hand over power to a democratic government. Earlier, Western nations also called for a swift agreement between Sudanese protesters and military to install civil rule. Talks between protest leaders and the military council hit deadlock over who should lead a new ruling body. Sudan has been in political turmoil since the army took power following the overthrow of President Omar al-Bashir on April the 11th. And in Afghanistan, growing number of killings and kidnappings have added to the woes of war-scarred residents in Kabul. More in this report.
Marred by Taliban and ISIS attacks, lawlessness is yet another harrowing term for the Kabul residents. One of the criminal incidents occurred last month when two men stabbed a teenager in Green Zone and left him for dead on the road. The attackers snatched the boy's mobile phone and camera, but it took an hour for the authorities to rescue him.
We have worried so much about getting killed. If our passenger is a good person, we still fear and we're dubious because nowadays the number of the thieves have gone up.
Criminal gangs occasionally target foes by planting sticky bombs under their cars.
100% I am worried. I don't care about myself, but I am scared of losing the car because I am working for someone else. It is not my own car. Nowadays, every Afghan is so worried. Anyone coming out of the houses don't know whether they will be dead or return alive to their houses.
With police's indifference to control the surging crime rate, residents have lost hope of having a secure life.
Police is incapable of doing anything. We never saw a police arresting a thief on the spot and bringing him to justice. Even if they see the thieves, they don't dare to chase them because the thieves are also armed.
Kabul's rising crime rate came to the fore when former journalist Meena Mangal was murdered in broad daylight on a busy street.
Uber has launched world's first rideshare submarine in Australia, taking the commuters on a voyage of Great Barrier Reef. The ride is aptly named as Scuba. Details here.
A select few Australians will soon be able to book the journey of a lifetime. People of Queensland will be able to order an Uber submarine to the Great Barrier Reef. Uber app will be used for ordering a two-person ride. After being picked up from their location, they will fly via helicopter to Heron Island. From there, travelers will board the submarine for an hour-long thrilling journey. The sub will take them down to 20 meters below sea level and along the designated dive paths around the reef. Suzanne Anderson, General Manager for Uber Australia and New Zealand, termed the experience as world-changing.
Having this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be able to access a submarine, which is typically only available to the ultra-rich, is something that will give more people the option to have this world-changing experience.
The experience will run from 27th of May to 18th of June and costs $2,062 a duo. The Great Barrier Reef is home to more than 1,500 fish species and coral varieties. It has, however, been seriously damaged by pollution and climate change.
Iraqis have turned to budding ecotourism to save the once expansive marshes. The Mesopotamian marshes are a rare aquatic ecosystem in a country nearly half of which is covered in crack desert.
Iraq's southern marshes are waking up after a 30-year drought, retaliating to an uprising in the region. Former Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein cut off water to the marshes in 1991. The move shrunk the Mesopotamian marshes to half, but finally they are blossoming once more due to a wave of eco-tourists.
I used to dream about visiting the marshes when you were kids. We used to hear a lot about them. I am here today and this area looks very blessed. The view is wonderful and the marshes are very beautiful. The only thing missing is the state paying attention to them.
After 90% marshes got drained, the area's 250,000 residents dwindled down to just 30,000. But nature showed mercy and heavier rains filled more than 80% of the marshes' surface area. The return of water has also brought back tourists and wildlife.
The Iraqi environment and marshes are not only important because of their landscape, they are different than the marshes of California, South Africa or Romania. The Iraqi marshes have a deeply rooted Akkadian and Aramic local culture.
The Mesopotamian marshes have been declared Iraq's 5th UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2016. Activists urge the government to protect the marshes and develop a long-term ecotourism plan for the area.
Dubbed as the world's species gene pool, China's Gaoligong Mountain hosts 205 mammal and 525 bird species. The nature preserve has been taking additional species protection measures in recent months. Details in this report.
The Gaoligong Nature Preserve has one of the most unique natural footprints in the world. The mountain is home to 205 mammal species, 525 bird species, and 5,135 different spirometophytes. Experts have credited the mountain's elevation for its unique flora and fauna.
Encountering severe weather conditions for the past 10 million years, wildlife and plants could migrate from bottom to top and vice versa along this mountain range. So, many endemic species have stayed at such a unique natural environment.
A new species was also discovered in the preserve in 2010, the critically endangered Myanmar snub-nosed monkey. The monkeys live at an elevation of 2,300 to 3,300 meters.
We will try to minimize human interference as we will prevent the monkey's range of activity from being damaged, and also we will try to keep protecting its food sources through patrols.
Since 2017, the preserve has also been installing infrared cameras to keep a better record of protected animals. The preserve also hosts the Craigia unanensis, a rare flowering plant. It was previously thought less than 100 specimens of the plant existed, but 42 more were found in the preserve this year.
An ancient firewalking custom called ANASTENARIA still lives in the modern era. The ritual is practiced in northern Greece and combines Christian and pagan traditions. More about this in this report.
The firewalking custom dates back to pre-Christian times. It is still practiced in northern Greece and South Bulgaria. The ritual practiced on the named days of Saint Constantine and Saint Helen.
The first year I tried it, I was afraid because I thought I would get burned. However, I was told that if I have faith, I won't get burned. So I tried it. And truly, while I was dancing in front of the icon of Saint Constantine and Helen and kept my faith, I did not get burned.
The festival lasts 3 days. Apart from firewalking, it includes music, dancing, and animal sacrifice. ANASTENARIs believe they are seized by the saints when they are dancing. Those who celebrate the ritual say it strengthens their sense of community.
I feel like a part of community, like a part of some bigger, and I am not one man when I come to ANASTENARIA. I am with another my brothers ANASTENARIA too, and I feel like in brotherhood.
The Greek Orthodox Church does not support the tradition because of the pagan origin. This has not stopped the ANASTENARIs from taking part in the ancient tradition.
Now let's take you to the world of business, where global stock markets have plunged in a perfect storm as Europe headed to the polls amid fresh economic gloom. London's FTSE 100 shares index was down 1.5% in midday deals as the government postponed a crucial Brexit vote. The pound forged another 4-month low at $1.26. Eurozone indices took a battering also, with Frankfurt and Paris losing 1.8% and 1.7% respectively in afternoon trading. Asian and European equities also tumbled as China-US trade frictions continue to dog investor sentiment. China has said that U.S. pressure on Chinese firms is economic bullying and a move to prevent its development. Foreign Minister Wang Yi said China's doors would always be open to the U.S. for trade talks. However, he said China would not accept any unequal agreements. Earlier, President Donald Trump barred U.S. companies from engaging in telecommunication trade with Chinese firms. The trade war escalated after Washington increased tariffs on Chinese products worth $200 billion. And now bringing you stories from the world of sports. Australia's Caleb Ewan has claimed victory in the 11th stage of the cycling tour of GIRO d'Italia, but the sprinter has withdrawn from the tournament to prepare for the Tour de France. The 3-week-long Grand Tour of GIRO d'Italia is underway, and there have been a few surprises in who has gone through. Australian Caleb Ewan has won the 11th stage at the end of a 221-kilometer ride from Carpi to Novi Ligure. The Lotto Soudal rider won in a sprint finish ahead of Arnaud Demer of France. The German cyclist Pascal Ackermann finished third in the race. Italian Valerio Conti remains in the leader's pink jersey. Meanwhile, Ewan has dropped himself out of the remaining tournament to prepare for the Tour de France. International Olympic Committee has recommended inclusion of boxing but suspension of its governing body AIBA from the 2020 Olympics. The recommendations of the executive committee will be put before a full IOC session in Lausanne in June. The decision followed an IOC inquiry into the finances and governance of AIBA, which has been in turmoil for years. IOC said in a statement that it would set up a task force for organizing boxing competitions, including the qualification events between January and May. IOC President Thomas Bach said the decision was taken in the interest of the athletes and the sport of boxing. The governing body of amateur boxing has threatened to take legal action against the IOC. Nepal has hosted the first ever Wheelchair Asia Cup T20 cricket tournament in Kathmandu. Participants hoped to show the world that wheelchair-bound persons can perform on par with the rest of the society. Details in this report.
Teams from Nepal, Bangladesh, India and Pakistan competed in the Wheelchair Asia Cup T20 cricket tournament. The game's rules were the same, with minor alterations. Batsmen dropped the bat and used their hands to mobilize their wheelchairs and score runs.
They are very happy, they are more confident, and they are also the role model for the other rest in our country to set an example that we can do everything.
Participants expressed hope the event would create a more optimistic outlook on disability.
The able-bodied look at us differently, a bit negatively, but here we are able to explore our abilities and show the whole world. Sports can change our life. That's why I am playing, and it has been good for me.
Pakistan beat India by 5 wickets in the final held on Saturday. Pakistan's Mohammad Latif scored 152 runs off 62 balls to lead his team to victory.
And now a look at the weather around the globe. These are all the stories in detail we have for you this hour, and don't forget, you can visit our website for details on all of our main stories. You can find them at indus.news.